Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Thank you very much for coming here. Today, we're going to talk about a new tool for wildlife conservation called LifeAndes, Advanced Network for Distribution of Endangered Species. This project is part of our research lab, Fauna Australis in Catholic University, where we are focused mainly in biodiversity because we consider biodiversity a key asset in the Andean region of South America. When I mean Andean region, I'm talking about Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and Chile mainly. Wildlife conservation aims to protect biodiversity for future generations and maintain current ecosystem services. Our research group also tackles different aspects of different species or endangered species in Chile and in nearby countries. And within the framework of our research, we have explored some new techniques to include softwares and loggers, automatic loggers, to understand wildlife patterns of habitat use, and particularly in endangered species. For example, we are using camera traps, we are mapping, and we are trying to understand what's going on with endangered species. The problem about wildlife in South America and in many places around the world is that there are many species that are threatened. More than 18,000 species are threatened around the world, and many of them remain unclassified. Extinction is a process that begins with a population decline and follows for a complete disappearance of a species. And that is important for ecosystem services and for humanity. One of the ways to prioritize and focus resources and knowledge is to classify the species according to their endangered or threatened degree. And we have here the endangered concept, where we need a series of specific data and information to understand why they are endangered or not. In that case, one of the things that we need to understand and to know with species that are rare or difficult to study is where they are present, or the species distribution of the species. And the species present records and mapping are increasingly important for IUCN classification, which is used in the whole world. Therefore, data or location of an animal in a given moment or date or time of the day is a crucial information when we're talking about endangered species. Occupancy area, extent of occurrence, extreme fluctuations can all be in a way understood by understanding the location of the species in the ecosystems. We have done some work in distribution models, modeling species from presence records, and all of these modeling and key tools for conservation need sightings of the species. But we all know that we are facing an era of data-intensive science. But in the case of wildlife conservation in Latin America, we also face some other important challenges. Wildlife species are not easy to detect. Data generation challenge. Poor technological training, knowledge challenge. Institutions are not coordinated between them. It's a data sharing challenge. In the data generation challenge, we have that we still know little about many endangered species. Many animals are not easy to detect. Extensive surveys adequate equipment are expensive. So citizen science could help to provide locations where scientists are not going or where governments are not doing any work. In the case of the knowledge challenge, we have the government officers' lack of technology and skills to upload data. There are training and language barriers to use available computational tools. Therefore, any other tools or softwares available in English, for example, in Latin America, are not necessarily able to be used by park rangers or people in the wild. And finally, the the data sharing challenge. Government agencies have little experience sharing wildlife data and sometimes run parallel database systems for the same topic. Sharing protocols are absent, cloud computing is almost none, and many useful studies end up storing papers or emails without being utilized. We spend a lot of money doing research, and some of them end up in a profile, in a folder, in a report, and many incidental data that you collect in your wildlife experiences working around, or ecotourists that are experienced, for example, or bird watchers, that data is simply lost. Therefore, we think that citizen science should be included to provide valuable data for wildlife recording. There are some international databases about wildlife that use georeferenced data. Some of them are very useful around the world, but particularly we detected for our case in Chile that, for example, 5 species of our wildlife that are endangered got little, almost none information from them, just a few records of the distribution of them around Chile. You can understand that with that kind of information, it's not possible to plot or understand the conservation status of any species. And also, global database lack of precision somehow. For example, these are locations of mountain lion in the middle of the sea, which is impossible. When you check the databases that are global, you start to understand that there is a need for a local database that you can share data between different countries or citizens and scientists. That's why we created Life Andes, Advanced Network for Distribution of Endangered Species. This is more than a software. It's a concept that put together conservationists around South America, particularly in the Andes region, to share, upload data, and also citizens and governments linking and collaborating between each other. It's a web portal for uploading, visualize, and download wildlife species presence records, aimed at improving wildlife knowledge and conservation and promoting data sharing among citizens, scientists, and government agencies. What we expect is that scientists will benefit from the citizens that collect data from birds, mammals, amphibians, reptiles, and science and wildlife conservation will be boosted by their collaboration, but also this information uploaded will be available for government managers, park rangers, ecotourist guides, and within this concept, we believe that we are innovating with Life Andes. We have now, I have to say that we are not computer scientists, but we have the collaboration of the computer science department of our own university, Catholic University, Andres Neyem and his team. And we will show you now a little demo of our work. But before we go into that, let me say that we are in the middle of our project. So what is the future for Life Andes? We are entering the second stage of this project where we are going to mount into the database the information that we already have. We are coordinating with the government agencies in Chile, scientists, ecotourist guides, and park rangers to let them know and input data into this system. We will need to train people about Life Andes, an assembling team of experts to validate information. We need to move forward in programming simple tools for data analysis in order to comply with IUCN Red List criteria for all species. Of course, we need to optimize Life Andes for connectivity with other tools or other systems that share data. And our dream is to extend Life Andes beyond Chile to the conservation community in Peru, Bolivia, Ecuador, and Colombia at the first stage. Here we have the team with people from the computer science department and people from our Department of Ecosystems and Environment. Well, let's go to the demo. Robert Petit-Paz, a co-researcher of our team, will help me with the demo, and we will explain in there what we are doing. Well, we have people that can register and create their own session. Then you have a little explanation of what is Life Andes, and then you have your own account with your sightings, come back, please, to your account with your own sightings, stats about your own work. And in case of this administration account that we opened, you have the possibility to solve a request, and you can also eliminate users or do any kind of management. Then you can explore sightings. You can see, let's wait there. Yeah, you can explore sightings. You can see your own sightings. It's not, try to move downwards the bar. Okay, you can input information, one single sighting or a list of sightings from more than one species at once. And then you have links to other portals and about us as a program. And all of this information will be displayed in Bing Maps. Yeah? Let's go now to input data. You can enter information by moving or clicking into the map, or by entering your GPS location if you are a wildlife biologist or government park ranger. Then you move into the classic error problem when you are doing a demo. Okay?
That is a control of precision.
Okay, that's an important point. If somebody sees an animal here and thinks it's around there and just want to put a pin there, we filter the system to allow just the right locations in a larger scale. Because if the scale is too rough, too large, you could make a mistake and put the species in the wrong place if you're doing that option instead of the GPS option, right? Then you input the data. You say what the species is the one that you are looking. We have all the Chilean species already with the scientific name and common name entered in our database. And then there is a picture. Automatically, you will see a picture of the animal that looks like the one that you are thinking that you have seen. And then you can add your own picture. You can add video, audio, or a comment, right? Then we go to next. Then you have to input key information, the date, the time of the date, right? And the type of sighting could be a direct observation or a footprint or other kind of information. Or you can have something like the age of the animal, if it's possible, the number of individuals that you have seen, sex, whether it's male or female or you don't know. And you can also write a comment that the administration will see. Right? Next. And then all the information should be displayed here. And then your sighting is going through the system to our Life Andes system, right? Then you can explore sightings. You can explore your own sightings, or you can explore people's sightings by date, by year, the whole database for a species. And also, you can see more than one species in a given place. So you can see if there are interactions between species in a given place, right? For example, we have here an animal, Llama guanicoe. You have Darwin frog, and you start to look if whether they are together or not, or whether they live in different parts of Chile. In the case of this case, you have different sightings, and then you have the information from each sighting in that place for each species, right? You can see that these species are not living in the same area. Well, then you have specific details of all your sightings, and if you have any comments. Let me say that you cannot see here, but you have an inbox as well. So everybody can be contacted according or regarding their sightings, and you can correct or you can check sightings with a panel of experts. Yeah, this is Robert's inbox, for example, and you can solve problems or doubts about the data that people are entering into the system. You have the different users, and you have then that data, for example, that could be extremely strange, out of range, or needs to be verified by people or scientists, or it could be a new distribution range for a species that is unknown, or it could be the rediscovery of a species that is endangered or almost extinct. That's the implications of sharing data from citizens, because wildlife is not always there when you want to go and do studies as a scientist. And sometimes incidental information or information from people, citizens, could be crucial for wildlife conservation. Unfortunately, currently in Chile at least, the different agencies and universities or scientists are not really sharing information or uploading locations, data that the single data maybe is not useful, but the whole data together gives you patterns, trends, distribution range, and a whole new way to watch and use that information and contribute to wildlife conservation. Finally, we are moving into the mobile because the idea is that in our country, we have more mobile phones than people, right? So the possibility that people take a picture and upload information. Tito, wait a minute. The possibility is that people take a picture and upload information is all over the place, right? Farmers, park rangers, everybody got telephones now. And then the idea is that we are developing the mobile platform for Windows 7. You have the same possibilities as in the web, and also you can put the picture in this way. Or then you can log in with your own account. We have one account here, yeah, FA for Fauna Australis, and the key, 6-digit key. And then the user is already inside his account, and now you can enter your sighting. You can take a picture or without a picture in this case, and then you put the species that you found, a Darwin frog in this case. The picture again come out in the system, the number of animals that you have seen, then you accept, and then you start to generate your map in your mobile. You can zoom in or zoom out according to your own interest, right? Next. Then you can enter the GPS coordinates in case that you have a GPS or your mobile phone got coordinates. We have very extensive mobile coverage in terms of 3G around the country. In many parks, you can have mobile phone information or remote areas. You enter the date, then you enter the time of the day or all the information as we said before, and you can also input comments, right? You can input comments about what you have seen there. Then you go next, and then you will have the animal. You can scroll the left or right, the common name and the scientific name, and then you can have the image, in this case, your own image if you input one, and then you have the map, and you have input the information now through the phone to the Live Andes web portal. That's why we call it Live Andes, because it will be fresh, new information about wildlife, endangered species. Most of the global database systems are based mainly in museum collections, right? And not all of them are, in this case, live and mobile. Well, I think that's all what we want to say today. Thank you very much. We are not computer scientists, but we are very pleased to be here, and we have learned a lot from you guys. Thank you. Any questions?
If there are any questions, we have like 2 or 3 minutes to answer some questions.
Yeah.
Me first? Okay. First of all, congratulations. I think it's a very interesting work, and I go directly to my question. The question is, you showed that it's possible to upload the information if you know the name of the species. And also it's possible to upload a picture. What happens if you don't know anything about the species and you just have the picture? What happens with that? With the picture, it's possible to, the system is able to recognize the picture and convert that into the scientific name and all the stuff regarding the
No,
species?
you need a panel of experts in that case that we will have to have for that case. But also, this is more than the software in itself. It's a portal where you will have links to different things like files with pictures, videos of the species that may look like yours. But it's very interesting what you suggest, because at least for the picture recognition pattern, well, maybe we can go into a group, a taxonomic group. It's different an eagle from a small bird. So you can maybe move into that, but it could be uploaded as an unknown species, and that will be collected by the administrator.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations too. I mean, it was very nice. My question is around users. How your user base? How many users do you expect to have? And today and in the future, how do you validate the data that you get? Is it?
Well, basically, we don't know how many users we are going to have because this is going to grow slowly. The idea is that we expect in the second stage of this project, when the whole software and the portal is finished, is to put this in the hands of the Ministry of the Environment. And they're very interested already in our work because they are trying to assemble together all the information that is available about wildlife. In Chile, we have a legislation that any study funded by the government, the data should be public at the end when it's finished. So you can request to any ministry information about whatever they do. So the idea is to assemble that information. Also, the environmental impact assessments are public. You can download them. There are PDF files. And in many of these studies, you have locations of a species because the law requires that you report biodiversity before you do a major intervention. We need panels of experts and sustaining this. And we think it's government or something like that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cristian.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation to be here today. I try to be very brief. So in our research, we are dealing with two grand challenges in different areas. The first one is ubiquitous computing, which is a very common grand challenges in computer science, both in Europe, US, and Latin America too. And also understanding the biological diversity and ecosystem functioning, which is a grand challenge in environmental sciences identified by the National Academy of Science. So we are trying to, our research is trying to combine both challenges. The thing is, we need to understand our planet's physical systems. That includes the climate changes, geology, hydrology, and so on. And we start our research in rainforests because it's where we are living. And we have some key problems when we talk about the rainforest, especially in the Amazon forest. The environment is an environment of extremes. The relative humidity is very high. Temperature oscillation is also very high. And the area is pretty much a huge area. So it's not, all the forests are not accessible for us to deploy sensor nodes and so on. We have also additional challenges to sensor networks regarding the efficiency of communications and how do we protect our equipment from this humidity and so on. We have some ecological issues because we are introducing something to measure and monitor the forest, but we do not want to cause any additional damage because of that technology too. So where are we starting? We're starting at the ANURA project, which is financially supported by LACCIR and the Brazilian government too, by the CNPq. And our basic idea is to monitor the frogs. Why? In general, amphibians are very sensitive to environmental changes. Climate changes, deforestation, water contamination, soil contamination as well. And we have plenty of species of amphibians around the globe, and all of them are very sensitive to changes. And it shows among all the amphibians, the frogs and toads, the ANURA, because they are also very closely related to the ecosystem. And they are fairly easy to be monitored compared to the other amphibians. So what we are doing, we are just starting our projects in a very early stage, but we are using sensor network to collect environmental data about the site of the frogs, and also the frog calls, the frog vocalizations in real time. So the idea is that we can, based on the sound we are collecting, we can classify which species we have in that specific site and estimate somehow the population of each species we have there. And also trying to correlate that with the environmental data we are collecting from the sensor nodes and from events that we are monitoring, for instance, forest fire. And based on that, we want to build, or at least move towards understanding a very small piece of ecosystem we have within the Amazon forest, which belongs to the site we are monitoring. So we are starting our pilot study at the university campus. This is a photograph of the campus. This is the largest urban forest reservation you have inside the city. Here are some photographs of one of our students collecting the data and inside the campus. We have been able to collect data from different species, 9 species that we had in the campus. They are very common, so they are good representatives for us in that region, in Amazon, and different individuals from each species. As you can see, the Gila minuta is the most frequent species we have in that area. So I'll give you an example of why I said it's fairly easy to classify frogs based on their sound. Here's the Andrea species, and I have here the sound of, I hope you can listen to them. Yeah, can you listen to that? Yeah, okay. So this is a very common behavior of the sound of the frog species. We have a lot of what we call syllables, which are the representation of what the frogs are calling, right? And here we have the environmental noise, okay? And the thing is that the frog calls, they rely on a very specific range of frequencies, around 5 kilohertz. So it's fairly easy for us to pre-process that. Here we have 2 other examples. This is a very interesting frog. It's also common there. It has this big vocal sac we call vocal bag. And as you can see, the sound is pretty much different from the Andrea that we saw before. And this one is, well, the biologists said it's a beautiful species. I don't know about that. But anyway, it also has a different vocal behavior. So the frequency is also different. And usually all the frogs, they have very different vocalizations, and their vocabulary are pretty small too. They have 2 or 5 different calls. So in this pilot study, we are collecting some features that we use to classify the frogs, features from the audio signal. The first one is the zero crossing rate, which it's related to the frequency. All of them are related to frequency. Spectral centroid is kind of the centroid mass of the frequency spectrum that we are working with. The bandwidth is the range of frequency we are working. And we are also collecting the mel septral coefficients, which has been used before for classifying other animals such as elephants and whales too. So the thing that is interesting here is that it's not, well, it's not appearing all the results here, but when we use the MFCC, which is used to classify other animals, it could reach up to 97% of success rate correct classifications. When you use the RSB, which is common for frog classification, or at least it's the state of art today frog classification, we could achieve only 91% of correct classifications. And when we combine all those methods, we adapted all those features in a combined method. It's about here. Can you see? Yeah. It's just here. It's 98% of correct classification. So we are doing a good job in this sense. But it's just the very beginning of the project. One key problem we have in the forest is the communication efficiency. These devices are designed, for instance, to communicate up to 200 meters. And inside the forest, the communication range is as low as 10 meters only. Sometimes even lower, depending on the forest density we are working with. The reason is that we have too many obstacles in the forest. We have a lot of humidity, and this frequency is particularly sensitive to water too. During this research, we have been making a lot of contributions to sensor networks, in general to computer science in the field of sensor networks, related to trying to make it work in the forest. The counting problem is also very difficult. What we are trying to do is to measure the vocal activity now, and based on that vocal activity, we are planning to estimate the frog population. We have several contributions in event detection, especially for fire detection, which is important for us in our project to make correlations about what's going on with the forest and what's going on with the frog population. Animal tracking for other animals, not frogs, especially small monkeys. We have made a lot of communication protocols suitable for our local reality. Fault detection, which is very common in sensor networks, and localization, which is also very important to see, to tell you where the events are occurring, not that only that event is occurring, but where it is occurring. And to finish our talk, our final comments about our contribution, our research, we are trying to solve some fundamental issues in sensor networks related to communication protocols, communication strategies, how to deal with the error-prone data that we have, how to do the spatial and temporal data correlation. That's a key problem and difficult. It's an open issue as well. We are trying to innovate into proposing new collaborative data fusion algorithms to process all that data and give us some relevant information. I'm sorry, I'm not a specialist in this field, so I don't want to say if it's information or knowledge. But anyway, to give us, or the biologists, useful information, not only raw data. We are also trying to do computer science in the sense that we are trying to help defining the role of computer science in other areas, in this case in ecology. We think that this multidisciplinary approach is very rich for both areas, for ecology and for computer science too. And we are working on that as well. We are also involved in our local communities, aiming at the sustainability of our research. We are involved in the local community in our graduate and undergraduate programs too, and that's a huge opportunity for them to work on the frontier of knowledge. It's very pleasant for us and for the students too. I would like to thank our crew, our team, and our financial supporters. And any questions, I'd be glad to answer. Thank you very much.
Eduardo, congratulations on your talk. Just a question. You have to build up a library of frog sounds to build your system for comparison, or could you manage to find collections of sounds recorded in other research facilities, or were the sounds available?
That's a good question, very, very good question. We managed to find a few databases of frogs, but not regarding the species we have in the Amazon. But anyway, that's not a problem because the method is supposed to work with any frog. But the thing is, usually all the data that we could find, they are very, very good data in the sense that they don't have the noise that we expect to have inside the forest. For instance, the sound of rain, the sound of other animals, they have only the frog sound. And when we have only the frog sound, the task is very easy, so we can achieve up to 100% of correct classifications. And what we are trying to do is to make it possible even when we have the forest noise, the natural noise inside of the forest. So that's why we are still building our database.
Eduardo.
Sorry.
Yeah. Frogs populations around the world are being affected by a fungal disease right now, and that's a major concern. Are you in touch with groups working with monitoring frogs populations in the world?
Yeah, I'm not the biologist in our team. We are computer scientists here. But our biologist, he's in contact with some other groups around the globe. Other groups in Brazil, because we have different species in Brazil, and they have different population behavior according to the climate changes. And we have also a collaboration with people from Australia too. Any more questions? Okay.
Good morning, all. I'm gonna ask for forgiveness for my brothers from Latin America. I will do this presentation in English because I can be more technical in English than I can be in Spanish. So. Thank you. I will be talking today. Before I start, I would like to appreciate the invitation to be here by the team of Microsoft Research and ConservationGÇ. And on behalf of my boss, Dr. Carlos Alfredo Joly, I would like to say that we are very pleased to participate on this event because there was a huge opportunity to learn about new technology that we might apply to our system. I will be talking for you today about a system, a biodiversity system that was developed 10 years ago, around 10 years ago, with the purpose to give support for some initiatives that were happening in Brazil, especially in São Paulo state during the time. And the content of this presentation will be the BIOTA FAPESP program and the system of information called SinBIOTA, how it was developed. How the program works, what are the main functions of this program inside the São Paulo context. What means the BIOTA plus 10, which is the renovation of this program for the next 10 years, and the need of redevelopment of our system, and finally some future steps we are planning to take. Well, around 1995, 96, a group of scientists were very concerned about what's happening in the world in the sense of conventions were being signed, and especially the Convention on Biodiversity, and we had to have the capacity to give answers to community. And unfortunately at the time in Brazil there was no single database that could provide all the answers in a regional aspect. That means if I go to a specific region, all the information on biodiversity was not being collected. There were few experiences in very specific taxonomic groups, but we wouldn't have a geographical approach for biodiversity itself. So there was 3 years of discussions among a group of scientists on how to build up something like this, how it would be possible from the scientific community to help the CBD in the São Paulo context. This started in 1996 until 1999 and was under the leadership of Dr. Carlos Alfredo Joly. The first thing this group managed to build up was the support of the biological science coordination and the scientific directory inside FAPESP. FAPESP is the funding agency inside São Paulo State. It's responsible for grants, for research, for master's students, PhD students. It's the main funding agency inside São Paulo. We are not talking about the whole federation. Brazil has two good agencies that support research, SinBIOTA and CAPIs. CAP is more related to student grants, SinBIOTA more for larger projects. But this is only inside the São Paulo context. In March 1999, the program was officially released with the development of the BIOTA FAPESP program and the Virtual Institute of Biodiversity, where I am the executive manager. There was a few elements that were needed to be composed. One of them were the objectives, what the program is aiming to. So it was all related to collecting data and preparing data to be presented to the community. And when I'm talking about community, not only scientific, we're talking about all the entities responsible for governmental, environmental governance inside the São Paulo state, and also to student communities and the population, the regular citizens that would like to know more about biodiversity. There would be a system of financial support. As FAPESP is an entity that provides grants for research, there would be specific systems and details for the biodiversity research. And we need to build up structure for that, this kind of research in biodiversity. And for that, we need an informational backbone for the biodiversity information. And this was the idea to create a system of information on biodiversity. And just to give you an idea what's the program divided in, we have today the leading group is called BIOTA FAPESP program, where there's a scientific coordination that will point out directions in research. And when I say directions, we are talking about scientific topics. I'm talking about geographical regions inside the state that need better investigation, and even taxonomic groups that are understudied. So we need to develop better knowledge on that taxonomic group. Inside of that, there's a sub-program called Bioprospector. That is a group that will work with bioprospection of organisms, how we can transform the information we have in specific groups for the development of components that can be put inside productive systems. And under that, we have the information system, we have an interface that shows maps about the information we have, and finally we have a scientific journal. This would be the page when you get to biota.org.br. That was the main page of our interface, where you can find the links to the map systems, the journal, the informational system that are elements that are part. You can have institutional information on the program, and you can send you to the bioprospector that works with prospection. This is a part system, and I probably will not be talking about it. Well, the SinBIOTA itself, it's composed by three essential elements on the data we gather. There's data related to the project. So the data we store today is related to funding made by the agency, which I will talk about later. There's data related to the location where the data was sampled. So we have a series, several data components that will describe the location where this data was collected, including methods, how this data was sampled. This is a very serious issue for scientific academia. They are very concerned on the process of data sampling. So this is an important component on this part of the data. And we have data related to species, the hierarchy that we are talking about when we are studying biodiversity. And the system is built to have an interface for users. We have the whole databases, and there's going to be some ways to interact from the interface to the database using software tools and database management systems and GIS systems. At the moment it was created, and that was an important political solution that was not necessarily the more technical solution for that. But during that time, governments were pushing hard on creating stuff with open source software. And so we have to use solutions with Linux, Apache, MapServer, and PostgreSQL. And just to inform you, I am not the computer guy. I'm the biologist, so I probably will not be very helpful in these bits of the systems. Just to show you what would be filling in as one of our forms. As you can see, we do a very restricted system to control what we will be putting inside our system. When you get inside the form, you are already registered as a user. And we have a hierarchical approach in that we would have coordinators of the projects and then users that are designated by this coordinator to get in data. We have already the information on the project you're in, so you are not a random user that could get in the internet, oh, I want to join the system. No, that will not happen. And then you have all the bunch of data that would fill a structured database such as this. I'm going to show you that that's not pleasant for many reasons, and the moment we are redeveloping essentially a part of this database. Well, and this would be, then this is something that any user, independently of being in a project or not, could see. This is the list of registers we have. You can see that we have plenty of information, and you can notice that this research were done by the group looking for seed plants, and just by my. Well, and this would be one of these charts when we have the whole data. This was very planned on the way which data would compose that. We fit that for metadata catalogs that were already available at the time. This is very important because we could relate that to Dublin Core, FDGC, metadata catalogs, but that was not explicit for the users because at the time, most of the scientists that were discussing the system said that that was too much to be concerned about. Now we know that we should have forced a little bit more on this bit of, you have to understand the metadata on your data. Well, that's how it looks like the interface with maps. As I told you, that was composed essentially on a system that counted with the fact that we have spatial data. We have here the limits of São Paulo state, and we have this distribution of certain type of forests around the state. Then we have some tools for do research in the database while looking at the maps interface. So you could choose by scientific name, author, municipality, hydrographical basin, and other restrictors to find information. And the list for acacia is a genus of plants, would provide you the whole list of species known inside the system. And the last component is the BIOTA Neotropica journal. It's a journal that has been reaching very, very success in the content of Latin America. We have articles coming from all over the world now. We have, I believe we don't have any content that had not published in this magazine. We achieved, we are now in 11.2 number, and we have really good access. In some peaks with some specific magazines, we've reached 4,000 visits a day, which is quite good for a scientific journal. We are an old school journal. All the content in this journal is a PDF available with the content of the article, so the reader will not have to pay anything to read it, but authors have to pay a really small fee so we can support the system. We don't have profit on that. Well, the success of these 10 years, and we have to say we have managed to achieve really impressive goals. We have more than
300 PhD students graduated with grants from us. We have around 150 that were inside projects that were granted for us, but the scholarship for the PhD was from another agency. And this is, we have better results with master students and scientific undergrad students with scholarships. That was a very pleasant process. But then we managed to push extra 10 years of this program based on this story. There was a community meeting of all the people that had provide research, the majors, the primary investigators, and we have 300 research, and we built up a scientific plan for this extra 10 years. We needed more engagement from the state universities. These are public universities, and they are the main providers of researchers for the state, and we have contributed to the support of building better research facilities all over the country, and we are providing and exporting still now the students for the rest of the world. So we need to do some review in the process we have inside the program. It's, some things were very tricky, some things were very complicated, especially now because we need multidisciplinary approach on research. And FAPESP was a kind of very bureaucratic in some aspects. You have provided one project proposal directed for biodiversity. Only biodiversity people will read. And if you're trying to build up, for instance, a computational system, there will be not a good person to evaluate your project in a sense. So we have to shake up a little bit the things inside FAPESP so the process will be easier. We have to expand objectives. We cannot only, at the moment, for these 10 years, we are gathering data of occurrence and location of biodiversity entities like organisms. But now we have to be able to discuss functionality in ecosystems. We have to discuss interactions inside ecosystems. We have to make relations on the value of biodiversity components and economy. So ecosystem services are a serious concern in serious aspects of environmental governance. So we have to expand this. And we have to do the improvement of the structure available. And with that, we have decided that was now the time for the new SinBIOTA system, the time 2.0. You can see that the logo represents what we have been doing in the past 10 years, but now we are talking about phylogeny relation, evolutionary relations among species, and we are talking about genomics, proteomics, and all these components that are now being used to do a better assessment of species. Some old school taxonomists would say, no, genomics will not solve the problem. This is a discussion that we leave for the community. If they want to fight about it, okay, we are not discussing this. But we have to be able to support this kind of information. So the project was a Microsoft FAPESP joint project and granting system. It's a 2 years that started 2 years ago, mostly. And the migration of the system from the original developer, that system that I show you, was developed for a group that was in the beginning a partner and became an NGO with the time specialized in informational systems. But we have grown apart in some decisions on how to conduct it, how to use the data. And for that, we decided that it would be better for a new group join in and trying to do the redevelopment. And this CENAPAD is an institute that is high performance processing data in São Paulo State that joins the community of high processing entities in Brazil. So we have there a computer that can run 37.5 teraflops, which I actually don't know what means, but I know it's a lot of processing. So we can now move from just having our maps to have modeling on it or any kind of other interesting features we want to apply to that system. We have to build a prototype with new technology because, as I told you, that system that's running at the moment has a 10-year technology, was built with Perl and several other things that we have been finding a lot of problems to update. And we are building a document, a specification that will show to any person in the future that wants to join and propose a project for the system. So I have this tool, I want to create this tool for the system. Following this specification, this chap will be able to build up this tool and join in with the system running. So I have, this list is big, but we have been doing a lot of stuff. We have been doing visit to our coordinators to say, okay, the system was like this, but was there something that you would like to see in the system that would help your work with? A lot of integration with external systems and repositories. We have to, as a lot of the friends that have been talking here earlier, we have to be able to talk to other databases and information. We have to share now. That we don't have more time for holding and being sitting on our databases, but we have to be explicit about it. I'm using this kind of metadata form, and our policies are that, and we are doing these ontologies for interoperability and stuff, so that must be explicit. We are doing studies on all the great systems, so we want to talk to them. Some of our data is already on OBIS without consent, but it was a very strange process because the researchers provide the consent, but we never discuss about it in our system, so how can it be? But in the end, it was agreement achieved about it and is there. Scalability and security of large databases, because our idea is, at the moment, our database is based on projects of BIOTA FAPESP, and we are going further with that. It's not more possible to keep only projects of FAPESP on that. We have to go further. And I'm going to explain why. So multimodal data, we are now bringing more types of data for the system. We have to have it for modeling and other tools. We are doing a big survey on map systems. We are getting a specialized tool for instance, modeling in species distribution, habitat distributions. That's an important concern for ecologists at the moment. We have to do data mining and knowledge discovery because yet we have 10 years, most of the people that have were granted with money from FAPESP has published, and most of the time not informed us about the publishing they've made. So we have to do data mining to discover which papers are progress from our grants and how we join this to our database. So we could have a copy of this paper in the database so users could have their work facilitated by our system. We are going to mobile because everybody is doing that, but actually no, it would be very easier for us to have people filling on forms in the forest. We have a lot of range of mobile devices in São Paulo, so that would make life way easier. And we are discussing cloud computing, especially with processing seems pretty good results around. And social networks. It sounds funny, but scientists are very recluse. They like to stay in their labs doing their stuff, but they like to talk. They like to talk a lot. So providing this kind of tools could make their life easier. So we are doing some changes in the database. That's very important because there were some relaxed integrity constraints, redundancy. There was a lot of redundancy in our system. And each taxon rank as individual table. This makes the database like huge. And the idea is now work with class modeling and object relational mapping. And especially, we are trying to change for that thing for a more clean and objective database. Especially now, just let me back. That bunch is all the information about species, which make it a nightmare. And for that, we are now, instead of having all the tables, we will be working with just a taxon table where establish the rank of the relation of this taxon with some other taxon, and there will be explicit parent-child relationship on that, and that will make stuff easier. This is the proposed architecture of the new system. So we have the web browser, we have the BIOTA right here, and we have the BIOTA web with views. Sorry, I can read from there. Controllers, Silverlight controllers, and web services that go for our model and get the entities. And sorry, it's very hard for me. And business rules, and some testing on this architecture. And this will be probably what will be released on our prototype. We are using Bing Maps for that. And we have done a lot of assessments, and the databases that are available in Bing are actually way better than what we have for Google Earth in a lot of parts of São Paulo state. The images there are available for Google Earth. They are not very useful. But some people inside the program are defending that we should provide any kind of map viewing. They don't know what they are talking about when we are talking about programming that for the viewers, but they say, oh, we could give Google Earth and Bing, and I say, well, let's take it easy on that. This is still assessment, but this is the prototype build. That's the image from what we have built on the prototype, and it's very likely that it's going to be released with Bing Maps. So our idea for the future is that scientific community, environmental governance are providing directions now. We have to put them more in the front of the decision. We have to join these guys, because in the past 10 years, nobody has tried to do something similar to what we have done. And it's not about the fact that we have created a call for projects for that, but there was no initiative and the people were not much willing to engage the computational part of it. But we have to have directions from these chaps. So we want to put them in the system. So we're going to use their feedback as guidance for new development. So we have to consider new data providers. For instance, most of the systems of governance say that monitoring systems for conservation are a governmental responsibility. Should not be scientists, because scientists grow bored doing that. They can develop the beautiful system. After sometimes they are not much concerned about it, because the idea in science is to be creative and seeing new ways to achieve data. Monitoring systems are very repetitive, so with the time, so governmental institutions should be taking these, and we can provide services to hold this data. So this is something that we have to go for. We're going to grow a modular system where new tools can be easily incorporated. We cannot have one simple format for that. We are doing horizon scanning to identify and stimulate innovative research and technology in biodiversity. So these guys could, that's the last slide, sorry. So we can achieve new people involved with the process, especially computational people. We need them. We want to create solid bridges between biodiversity and computational sciences. We have to have capacity for new formats, so modeling workflows is especially concerned for scientists and repositories. Oh, sorry. And get more mechanisms to present data informed to the community, so we can have feedback. Well, very fast. If you want further contact, Carlos Jolis is the coordinator of the project. João Meidanis is the computational leader of this redevelopment, so there is mail. And if you want any considerations and need any information, just contact me. Thank you.